The UN recently released the 2021 Global Forest Goals Report, and it's got all sorts of interesting information about climate change and biodiversity. And so we're going to talk to Dr. Michael Brady, who is a principal scientist at CIFOR, an Indonesian-based research institute, about the report. So welcome to the interview, Michael.
Thank you very much, Markham.
Look, why don't we start with your take on the report, and is good news or bad news?
Okay. I think overall the report is positive. It reviews progress on the 6 forest goals, global forest goals, that were established in a plan for forestry starting in 2017, and these goals are targeted for 2030. So the current document that's just come out is a progress report, really, over just the first few years. But each of the 6 goals is reviewed, and these goals, of course, have targets. There's 26 different targets, and these are all voluntary. Overall, there's reasonably good progress. The report identifies different types of progress, but there are some areas where there are concerns. Deforestation has largely been leveled off in some parts of the world, but in other parts, such as in Africa, Latin America, we see deforestation as still a serious concern.
One of the points that the report made was that there was considerable progress in the few years preceding the pandemic, but now as we get towards the end of the pandemic, it seems to be going in the opposite direction. There's been some pullback, I guess, as maybe economies expand and there's more deforestation going on. What's your take on that?
Yeah, the CIFOR, and I should also mention we're now merged with the World Agroforestry Center, ICRAF. Both of our organizations have been looking at the effects of the global pandemic on the forestry and wood products sector. And we can see that there have been impacts in the sector, certainly on the deforestation side, as we see people going back to rural communities from cities where employment has been impacted. There are thoughts that is leading to increased deforestation. Governments are focused on the pandemic, and so you see law enforcement and support for forest management has been on the decline, and of course, markets for forestry products have been impacted during the pandemic. So there are concerns. I guess it's been a real eye-opener in the sense that we realize that local supply chains are likely to be more sustainable than depending on longer sort of global supply chains. So that's an interesting, I guess, lesson learned from the pandemic.
Are you confident that going forward in the 2020s, that governments are committed to the goals, the UN goals, the 6 goals, and that we'll get back on track to meet those objectives?
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I think the global forest goals, they are linked to the Sustainable Development Goals, which have very high recognition. They're linked to some of the key conventions, the Climate Convention, the Biodiversity Convention, and others, Desertification Convention. So that these linkages, I think, will support progress for all of the different commitments, including the forest goals.
I've done a couple of interviews lately, Michael, with experts talking about nature-based solutions and, the carbon offset issue of preserving or expanding forests and other, nature-based kind of approaches like land management. So if that continues to expand, which is almost you could argue, I guess, a market-based approach, are you optimistic that that will help in the process?
Yeah, I mean, this is in some ways repackaging earlier ideas and concepts for CIFOR. It's really just expanding the use of forest and wood products, expanding sustainable forest management, expanding the use of wood to replace other materials, fossil fuel-based materials. So we're quite engaged in promoting, and this has always been our mandate, to promote more use of wood, fiber, food from forests. So it's as I said, it's a concept that's been around a long time. It's currently being repackaged, but it's all very positive for us to see greater use of forests and wood products.
If you could single out one issue, maybe it's the Amazon rainforest, for instance, that needs to be addressed this decade, what would it be?
I'm a little biased. My particular, or one of my areas of forestry is fire management. We saw last year in the Amazon, but also previous years in Southeast Asia and parts of Africa, serious wildfire concerns that wildfire is on the increase due to things like climate change and land use change. So fire is a particular concern for me and many other forestry specialists. Being here in Canada, which is where I'm from, fire is a natural part of the landscape, but we've built up many systems, and we spend a lot of money on fire management, and this is not these types of systems and budgets are just not developed in in the global south, where in some ways it's a new phenomenon, but fire's been on the landscape in the global south as well. It's just not affected people to the degree that it is now. So fire is a big concern.
Let's flip that question on its head. What is the one thing during the 2020s that you're most encouraged about?
I think the report highlights the fact that sustainable forest management systems, organization is on the increase. We're seeing more and more of the world's forest under sustainable forest management, whether that's through government regulations or through voluntary systems like forest certification. So to me, that's very encouraging to see more and more under forests under sustainable forest management systems.
Michael, thank you very much for these insights. Really appreciate it.
Okay, it's a pleasure.